Alright guys, welcome to the Grand Arena. We have nice one Xaryu going up against Tony from the Bronx. Honestly, in my opinion, these two teams may potentially be the favorites of the tournament, facing each other here in round 2 in a best of 3 brutal series. It's going to be an intense one here. And that being said, Tony's running Warrior Mage Druid. What do you think about that, Supa?
It's their best comp choice between KFC and Turbo. Turbo just ends up getting CC later in the game, and you can't deal with that. And WMD has the pressure output and the raw damage. And Lossa is actually going to be playing arms, so he can swap around, hit Asbur as well as Mageiden. Probably going to be sitting on Asbur more than Mageiden. Already entangling roots being thrown out here. Asbur getting locked out on a Cyclone there by Jack Reacher. Looks like he's trying to make a play. Deep Blazing Speeds in, lands the Deep Freeze, going for the Polymorph. The Polymorph going to land, as well as a Ring of Frost on the side of Hottedtko. Solar Beam comes on to Tony. He's got to be careful. This is a big Boomkin burst. He is going to block that, answer that 3-minute cooldown out from Asbur. A defensive Double Fear landed now as well. Felorea pushing up. Looks like he wants to get something going.
It absolutely does, man. I mean, Skull Banner coming out, I'm sorry, Reckless is coming out from Lossa as well. Mageiden taking a whole bunch of damage. He's actually going to get procced by that Saved by the Light.
Yeah, Mageiden taking a bunch of damage here. The full Stoneball comes out on Asbur. He's trying to cast a clone. He does get the clone onto Lossa, so that'll ease up the pressure a bit. Jack Reacher in a bit of trouble here. He needs to play a little more defensive and wait for that deep freeze. The Iron Bark does come out from Hottedtko by Hottedtko. The full poly onto Felorea, but no damage being tossed out on this CC. The DR poly does come out on Felorea, but they're still not able to get much pressure out onto this Mage Ben Boomkin team. The wings coming out from Felorea here. He'll be able to top his team off. Asbur just spreading the dots. The full deep freeze comes out on Felorea, and both teams just look like they'll be stable for now.
Yeah, but the one ice block lead on the side of nice one Xaryu is an advantage. Tony in the center of the map taking some heat, building up those icicles, looking to make a play when Deep Freeze comes up in 14 seconds. Mageiden taking a bit of damage. Mageiden making a play. It blinks in for the Deep Freeze Ring of Frost. He gets polyed on it, denying that ring. Well played by Tony, preemptively casting his polymorphs. But a full clone going to land nonetheless out from Asbur. A bash onto Lossa as they swap over to him with the double ice snow, dipping him very low. He's going to use the regen. Now the Deep Freeze, however, onto Felorea. Tony actually blocking offensively to get a poly. He's not even going to land it. He gets solar beamed on it, and now he's out of blocks for 2 minutes. A Cyclone getting reflected and a Cyclone getting thrown out onto Mageiden temporarily here, as Tony needs to be careful.
Yes, Hottedtko does have a trinket and he does have Iron Bark, so he'll be able to keep Tony up for a bit. But the pressure that may be able to come out from this Mage Boomkin team at any time is very dangerous. So Tony will have to play a little bit of defensive. The Deep Freeze comes out onto Hottedtko. The full Ring of Frost here. He does have a trinket, but I think he wants to hold on to that. They're pumping a lot of damage into Tony right now. The full Hodge comes out onto Lossa. Mageiden and Asbur just trying to push the pressure, and the full Stoneball comes out onto Asbur. The full fair onto Felorea. He does want to say he's holding his trinket, he's holding his bop. He doesn't want to use anything for that. And Jack Reacher taking a lot of pressure here. He does use the Kona Code to slow them and try to kite them away. Asbur at 42% here. He does get his Cyclone reflected onto him, and it looks like he'll be fine.
Ooh, Felorea into the Deep Freeze, landing the full polymorph here. Might be the trinket. He trinkets immediately into a repoly. He does manage to rebuke it. Now the Frostjaw landed, possibly a half polymorph out of that on his Avenging Round. Asbur at 40%, feeling the heat with no bar skin. Felorea finally leaving CC, and now Hottedtko caught into a Deep Freeze polymorph. Tony, the Star Surges are flying in. He's desperately trying to line his sight. Going to be able to avoid all this damage. A Cyclone onto Lossa as Asbur and Mageiden make the push in here. Felorea as well, going offensive, throwing the Hodge out. I believe actually, no, where did the Hodge end up going there? Maybe it was trinketed instantly by Lossa. Hottedtko spamming the heals out there. Asbur caught in a Stormbolt. The wings have faded for Felorea. Now he's into a Deep Freeze. He did sack the Polymorph. They got to be careful. He polymorphs into the sacrifice. They got to make sure that they wait for that to fade before they're going for it. Mageiden taking a bit of damage here at 40%, but with no CC onto Felorea, should be able to easily heal through it. The full Cyclone going to land. Unfortunately, Lossa cloned at the same time. Mageiden, Saved by the Light, is going to proc a huge shield on himself, absorbing a lot of this incoming damage. Felorea into a half polymorph now, looking for that Frostjaw. Going to land the Frostjaw. Hodge on Lossa, ring onto Hottedtko, 3v1 onto Tony. Solar Beam comes down onto him as well. But Lossa is just going to pop like popcorn.
Unbelievable. That Hodge swap going out onto Lossa was devastating. I cannot believe what I just saw. I felt like I'm replaying right now. Don't you worry about a thing. But watching that,
I want to open.
I'll replay it again if you miss it. But there's the Hodge on the Lossa at this point. Hottedtko still being put into that full ring. This full Hodge on the Lossa, he doesn't have a trinket for it, and that swap on that Hodge is gonna be his death, man.
I'm watching this.
Yeah, that was.
Wait. What happens? He's Hodged at full health. He has his heal. He uses his heal. It doesn't matter. He dies instantly. He must have been in battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It would show a defensive stance above his head if he wasn't.
Alright, we're going to watch it again. Just to make sure if he's in battle or not.
Alright, so the very first game of this best of 3 series is going to go to Nice One Xaryu. And that means Nice One Xaryu is going to have to announce their composition to Tony from the Bronx ahead of time. Let's see here.
Woo. Wow.
You mean Xaryu's team is going to have to announce their comp?
Yeah. Oh, is that not what I said?
No.
Oh, okay. Alright. Alright. So, Tony from the Bronx, they're going to bring the map to Dalaran Sewers. Here we go. We're going to queue up for the second map of this best of 3 series. And I'll see you guys in just one hot minute.
Sheesh.
Sheesh Luis. Here we go, boys. Welcome to Dalaran Sewers. It is Team Nice One Xaryu, Mageiden, Asbur, and Felorea going up against Tony from the Bronx. And Tony from the Bronx did make that composition change to a turbo. There it is. So Tony, or as Supatis, as a member of Tony from the Bronx, them running turbo, do you think that they have a better chance on a turbo than a Warrior Mage Druid against this Mage Boomkin Holy Pally team?
They might just not feel confident in playing W&D. Like, even when I was playing, we don't practice it a lot. And they might just be like, okay, there's too much swap potential, let's get a little bit of extra off healing. We know that we can play defensively and live a long time and kind of just hope for maybe a lucky kill, which is what I'm expecting from this decision. Tony already pre-hotted by Hotted here, going into bear form to try and avoid the deep freeze. He pre-iron barks the deep on himself. A lot of incoming damage. Felorea actually offensively execution sense. He's not going to have it for Mageiden. He's dipping low. The Saved by the Light's going to proc. He's sitting through the Fear. He has no big heals right now. 30%. That's going to be the first block. The offensive execution sense from Felorea. Payback time here as they're going to swap to him. He gets locked out now on a heal as well. Lossa into the bash. They're swapping to him. He pops the heals very early on there. Felorea's wings are going to be fading, and getting through that block so early is good for Tony from the Bronx.
Yes, and Tony from the Bronx being able to get a lot of cooldowns from this Mage Boomkin team. As you see, Asbur did use his Incarn, his Trinket, and the block and the Trinket out from the Mage also. The full poly coming out onto Hottedtko here. They're trying to get some damage onto Lossa, but he's not budging at all. Felorea at 41%. This turbo is actually trending him. His Saved by the Light does proc, and he's trying to kite away with his freedom, and it looks like he'll be able to get away for a bit, but he still does have to deal with the counter, the juke. He still has to juke a counter, this counter spell from the Shaman, but the full poly onto Tony and the full cyclone onto Hottedtko. Lossa taking a bit of damage. The full Hodge comes out onto him. This Mage and Boomkin trying to do a lot of damage. The DR clone comes onto Hottedtko. Lossa at 20%. Ironbark has to come out here. Hottedtko is able to top him off with that NS, and this Mage Boomkin team doing so much damage out of nowhere.
They overlap the Iron Bark and the Die by the Sword, though, so it's a punishing move there. They do connect onto Felorea. A Cyclone, I believe, getting thrown out or reflected onto Asbur. Felorea feeling a bit of pressure. He still has Trinket and his bubble. He's going to use the Execution Sense. He doesn't have Avenging Wrath for another minute. He's taking quite a bit of damage. He's going to pop it. Actually, just coming up. He is playing short cooldown now, I believe, instead, perhaps, or maybe the UI is bugged. He does have it up, though. He should be able to heal through all the incoming damage as a result. Ring of Frost landed onto Hottedtko. Clone onto Tony, and now Lossa with his regen as his only line of defense. Is it going to be enough? It's going to fade Tony into a half clone now. 3v1 still onto him. Another poly onto Hottedtko, looking to switch the clone over here. As we're going for the clone, not able to land it. Tony into a full poly now. As we're still going for that Cyclone, just not able to get it. Hottedtko doing a good job line of sighting at full bash onto Asbur now. Felorea feeling some pressure by Lossa. Tony from the Bronx playing much more aggressively in this matchup than would be expected. Felorea feeling a bit of pressure, but he still has his bubble. He still has his Trinket. Asbur still trying to go for a Cyclone here, just not able to get it. Defreeze going to land. Mageiden going for the full poly. Cyclone going to get reflected on Asbur. He's going to Trinket his own clone. Get shockwaved on the reclone. In the meantime, though, Hottedtko is still in a polymorph. Tony getting hit here. He's into the full Hodge. He has Shaman Rage available, choosing not to use it. Hottedtko gets a nice dispel in between that CC chain. Tony still not using the Shaman Rage, going to use it at 40%. Another clone onto Hottedtko. Felorea spamming denounces right now, contributing right now to try and kill Tony. Hottedtko Hottedtko into bear form using the Nature Swiftness. Unfortunately, I think he NS'd into that clone, so he's not going to have a big heal. Ironbark comes up to try and answer the rest of this incoming damage, but Asbur's Celestial Alignment is going to smack down hard in 8 seconds.
Yes, Mageiden is taking a lot of pressure here at 30%. Might have to block here. The Bash comes out onto Asbur, but Felorea is able to get some heals out. The full clone onto Asbur. Mageiden still in trouble trying to kite away from this turbo cleave right now. He's in the middle of the map, and it looks like he'll be fine for now. The purges are coming out from Tony, trying to get some pressure out onto Mageiden, but it looks like Felorea will be able to keep him up just fine. And the Astral Alignment, Celestial Alignment is up for Asbur now. So anybody that does get swapped to next time is going to be very dangerous. Hottedtko does have a trinket for any CC that comes out. The full deep comes out onto Hottedtko, the Hodge onto Tony, and he does get beamed there, but it looks like they'll be able to escape this. Mageiden using his using his icy veins there, but not getting out much pressure onto this turbo cleave. The recklessness from Lossa trying to put out some pressure, but nobody's taking any pressure. Felorea does drink his Red Bull. The wings are out, and he's trying to keep his team aggressive here. The Bash comes out onto Asbur. Asbur is behind the pillar, but it looks like he'll be fine with these wings from Felorea. Felorea still does have trinket, 2 bops, and a bubble, so it looks like this mage Boomkin team is going to be fine for a little while.
Yeah, neither team getting a lot done with their cooldowns. Ascendance is available for Tony. A Deep Freeze, Ring of Frost coming down onto Hottedtko here. Shaman Rage is available. Lossa has died by the sword in region as well. They're pressuring Felorea fairly hard. They've gone down to 50%. Throws the Hodge on a Lossa. Ice Nova is going to come through. He uses the regeneration to try and heal through this damage into the half bash. Tony throws off a decent off heal. Keeps him topped off as Hottedtko is sitting through this CC chain. And they are actually connecting fairly well to Felorea, as I've been saying the entire time. Asbur trying to go for some clones defensively. Going to land one onto Tony. Not going to be trinketing that offensively. Wants to make sure he saves it for that stun solar beam combination. Felorea sitting down for a drink, getting a quick sip. Spirit Will is going to be popped up by Tony. He does get rooted temporarily. A bit of mana getting back there for Felorea. It's going to be important as dampening starts here in 8 seconds. Mageiden feeling some damage here as the Colossus Smash goes on him. Lossa using the on-use trinket. Ironbark coming out preemptively to try and go before the Deep Freeze. He's also camping Bareform to try and avoid the polymorphs. Mageiden feeling some pressure at 30%. He's got one more block remaining. Double Shockwave going to land here from the Turbo Cleave. Their pressure is feeling pretty good right now. Deep Freeze onto Hottedtko. I believe the Ring of Frost got interrupted, but the full poly is going to land nonetheless. Hex gets dispelled by Asbur onto Mageiden. Felorea feeling some pressure from Lossa. Lossa caught into a full Hodge. Luckily, he did fall down below, out of line of sight. He's going to leave the stun and be able to get that die by the sword up. Tony popping the Ascendance now to get a bit of extra healing and offensive pressure onto Felorea. Tony taking Felorea down to 50%, has his wall and 2 bubbles. Going to use the Avenging Wrath, try and top himself off here with the Execution Sentence. Tony from the Bronx sitting at full HP. Ironbark coming up in 19 seconds, all having their trinkets. It is starting to look fairly decent for Tony from the Bronx.
Yes, as they're trying to put out a lot of pressure onto this Holy Pally. The double shockwave does come out onto Asbur and Felorea. The wings, he still has 12 seconds on wings, so that's still a little bit of extra healing for now, but it looks like he's going to be in a lot of trouble because he still does have to juke the share and the kick from the Warrior. The full fair comes out onto Asbur. He does get into, he does juke the kick there, and Felorea just topping himself off here. The full deep comes out onto Hottedtko, the Hodge onto Tony from Tony, but he does use his Sham Rage there. The Hottedtko sitting in his full poly. He hasn't had to use his trinket yet. That's how well they've been managing their cooldowns. Now he tosses out the Ironbark onto Tony Jr. He's going to be fine for now. Felorea taking some damage, but he's all the way away from these melee, and it looks like he'll be fine right now. And Hottedtko just tossing out some regirls, just sitting behind the pillar, trying to stay away from the CC. And the Turbo Cleave does look like they do have a great chance to get some pressure out onto one of these. But Felorea still does have his trinket, his bubble, and still has his 2 bobs, so he still has a lot of cooldowns to keep his team up. The full deep comes out onto Hottedtko, the Hodge onto Tony Jr. He does shift the poly, and he does get beamed there, but it looks like he'll be able to get away from that. Tony dropping to 21%, and he's taking a lot of damage here from this Mage and Boomkin. The full shockwave onto Felorea here. Felorea also taking some damage. The full clone onto Hottedtko. He still has trinket. He wants to hold on to that. Tony just kiting away, sitting behind the pillar, tossing himself some heals. The recklessness from Lossa, trying to do some counter pressure. Major then sitting at 42%. Felorea also at 48%, trying to toss out some heals for him and his Mage here, but it looks like he'll be able to stabilize his team soon.
Yeah, dampening now at 13%. Felorea's mana going to start getting taxed. Hottedtko sitting comfortably at 90%. As we're getting locked out on a Cyclone by Tony. Deep Freeze lands. Polymorph connects. Tony's going to use the Shaman Rage immediately on that full Hodge connection. Ironbark as well as Trinket used there. Quite a lot of overlap out from Tony from the Bronx, and that's something that Asbur and Mageiden are going to look to take advantage of as they have all of their defensive cooldowns still available. Bubble, Ice Blocks, Bark Skins, the entire kitchen sink at this point. Mageiden getting another Water Elemental out. They're going to connect onto Asbur. They want to try and shut down these Cyclones. They're going to have to be very aware of the next Deep Freeze Polymorph that's available in 2 seconds. Mageiden looking like he wants to make a move. He's got full Icicles. Hottedtko behind the box, trying to line of sight. Polymorph's getting spammed out here. Clone onto Lossa, deep onto Hottedtko. To Hodge onto Tony. 3v1 Asbur at 50%, though, being a little bit cautious. The damage coming in with the full ring should be the game here. Master Reflect comes through. Rallying Cry still available if he can get it off. Nice defensive Shockwave onto Asbur here. Felorea trying to keep his team offensive. Tony's going to survive that CC onslaught, keep his team offensive. A clone onto Tony now. Hottedtko camping the bear farm, trying to avoid as much polymorphs as he can as they swap over to Lossa. They do clone the regen. They switch the clone over to Hottedtko. Tony's desperately spamming out the off heals, trying to keep the pressure rolling. He does get solar beamed, trying to silence the incoming heals. Felorea caught in a Shockwave at 48% with no trinket, has bubble into the half bash now at 30%. Saved by the Light's going to proc here. He's still dipping low. He might have to use his bubble. 29%. Asbur spamming heals. No bubble. Jones and Tony from the Bronx taking it. Greedy plays out from Nice One Xaryu. Then everything left.
Yes, they did have 2 bops, bubble. He just was really greedy with his cooldowns there. And they had the upper hand there, finally getting Hottedtko's trinket, but just being greedy with the cooldowns at the end, and it cost them the game.
Yeah, that's really surprising coming out from Nice One Xaryu, but that is going to tie it up, and this is a best-of-3 series here, and the next game is going to determine who is advancing. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I felt as though Nice One Xaryu was going to take this series convincingly, but Tony from the Bronx, they're still in it, they're still fighting, and all of a sudden, Nice One Xaryu is on the verge of being of losing and dropping down to the lower bracket, though there was some technical difficulties coming out from one of these teams here, unfortunately. But that being said, I think everything should be good to go, and I'm just waiting on the map choices. Now, we did also create... whoa! We just got 1 million viewers out of nowhere. Did we just get hosted by somebody? You're being hosted by 3 channels. Yes, I'm being hosted by Soda Pop. And thank you so much, Chance, for that, buddy. Really do appreciate that, my friend. Welcome, all new viewers. Welcome to GCD TV. We host 3v3 arena tournaments every week right here. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. Alright, so it looks like Nice One Xaryu is going to be taking a quick 1-minute break. We'll be right back, boys. Y'all ready for this?
His team is just rotting, though. Maldiva doing so much damage to everyone.
Is he a live lord or is he not? Vanish cheap shot. Can he counter kill? The back comes out. He's gonna die. Kid down to Nesper now. Half HP. Nesper pulls it out.
And then he just flops. Are you kidding me? Dude, this Red Paladin team is here to play. Welcome to EU, ladies and gentlemen. Time to eat a ghost pepper. No, there's no way. Chance Morris is much more of a man than I. I will not eat such a thing.
Ghost pepper.
Okay. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and ask Mageiden on Team Nice One Xaryu what map they're going to be choosing next here. And Tony from the Bronx's team is going to be continuing to play that turbo. Alright, boys, this is round 2 of GCD number 15. We are currently in the series Nice One Xaryu versus Tony from the Bronx, and this game is going to determine who's going to the semifinals of the winner's bracket. Now, it's currently tied up 1-1. Both teams they want that spot, man. And going through the winner's bracket is very, very convenient. But the next map that's going to be chosen by Nice One Xaryu, they're going to bring it to Tiger's Peak. All right. That being said, I'll see you guys in just 1 hot minute.
It's a map we haven't seen.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Here we go. It is game 3 of Nice One Xaryu versus Tony from the Bronx. Both of these teams very, very good. Once again, we see that turbo cleave coming out from Tony from the Bronx going up against this Mage Boomkin Holy Pally team. And I must say, this Mage Boomkin Holy Pally team has been a feared team by many other teams in this tournament.
This is the first time that Turbo has beaten them.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so as well. But I could be wrong. I'm not sure. But I know that this team has just been performing so well, and this composition just seems so good against so many like viable compositions in the high-rated ladder. But I don't know, Tony from the Bronx, they're making magic happen somehow, some way. They are tied up 1-1, and here we go. The gates are opening in 3 seconds.
Yes, yes.
This is going to be match point for either team that comes out winning. Asbur running in on his Mount Mageiden in stealth, looking to try and get a polymorph from stealth, but Hot at the same time can go into stealth. He's pre-hotting now, full hots onto Tony Jr., instantly going into bear form now. Lossa going to be connecting onto Asbur for the time being, trying to throw out a Cyclone. Master Fleck came out there, he did stop cast it, now he's going to get pummeled though by Lossa. Hodge onto Tony Jr., Ringer Frost lands onto Hotted, Shamanistic Rage going to be used to answer it immediately. Fortunately, Asbur did not use Celestial Alignment, so using that cooldown before cooldowns have been used into you is a situation where you're going to be vulnerable. Now a Cyclone onto the remaining seconds of it. They got to switch that CC over onto Hottedtko, landing a full clone or waiting for the polymorph DR. They're going to land the full clone. They're popping the Celestial Alignment. They're going to go all in with the Ice Novas and Comet Storm coming in thick. 30% HP. Solar Beam coming down onto Hotted. Now he's going to shapeshift out of that, get the Nature Swiftness off. Now into a Deep Freeze. Mageiden pushing up to try and get more CC. DR Hodge onto Tony. He's going to survive that burst onslaught. A bit of a scary moment for Tony, however.
The Reckless Blade Storm coming out from Lossa here, trying to get some damage out onto Mageiden. He's trying to juke his Frostball's head, trying to juke the share from Tony, and Asbur tossing out the clone onto Tony Jr. And it looks like they're trying to kill this Mage here, and Felorea just tossing out the hills, trying to juke the share. The Stormbolt does come out onto Felorea here. Mageiden taking a bit of damage here. Lossa into the full clone. Tony Jr. just training him and trying to get those purges out, get the bubble and things off of this Mage. Asbur just sitting back, trying to toss out some clones here. He is trying to juke that share. He does get the share. He does get the share there, and he might be able to get a clone here onto Hotted. The full deep comes out onto Hotted, and it might be into a Ring of Frost. The full poly onto Hotted here. The full clone onto Tony Jr. Lossa taking some damage here. They're trying to burst him down. The big boy lances are coming out from Mageiden here. Asbur into the full Stormball here, and Mageiden is still in some trouble. But Felorea still does have a bunch of cooldowns, playing very offensive here, tossing out some of the denounces, and it looks like both teams are stable.
The Ironbark going to get cycloned up by Asbur. Cyclone once again. Felorea getting wind shear. It's not going to matter too much as Lossa is getting CC'd. Swapping the clone now over to Tony. Waiting for those polymorph DRs to run out. And as I say that, Mageiden blinks in, lands the deep, lands the full sheep. Hodge and Lossa uses the regen immediately. All of the icicles getting unloaded. Tony into another clone. He's not going to be able to off-heal. The regen heal is faded. He throws out the Master Fleck to try and interrupt the CC chain. Unfortunately, the full clone going to land through it. Felorea has his Avenging Wrath up. He's spamming the denounces out, trying to take down Lossa here. Finally, the CC ending, though, onto Hotted. Tony as well, going to be able to throw out off heals here. Bash on Asbur. Unfortunately, it's going to be DR'd. Asbur looking to try and get some defensive clones, rebuffing as well as Tony's just stripping all of their buffs. They're going to constantly want to be rebuffing. Wings is fading on Felorea. Tony and Lossa realizing this, they're going to swap to him, try and get some counter pressure onto him. Another Stormball. Unfortunately, it was 1 second DR. A bit of a misplay here from a lot of stuns on the side for Tony from Bronx. And now the full clone Ring of Frost landed his cross CC as a 3v1 onto Tony. He still has his Shaman Rage available. He's going to be sitting on it. Master Fleck instead. He was pre-hotted. The Trents get thrown down. Triple Fear going to land here. It unfortunately breaks on Felorea as they swap to him. Colossus Smash coming up. Lossa trying to get something going here onto Felorea as the debuff still up. Asbur going for defensive clones. He is going to get wind sheared by Tony. Lossa throwing out a full Stormbolt. Tony getting poly. Does get dispelled immediately. Felorea dipping kind of low here. Pops his unused trinket, his shield while going to execution, sends himself back up to full HP here shortly, but a full poly landed onto Hottedtko. Lossa has some CDs available. He's in the Blade Storm right now. Unfortunately, he did not Hodge into it. Now the full Hodge out of the Blade Storm. He does get dispelled prior to the Cyclone, so good dispel out from Hottedtko here to keep Lossa offensive as Felorea is down to 40% HP. Tony still has that Ascendance available.
Yes, Felorea still does have his trinket and bubble here, so he's going to be fine for a bit. He's been playing really aggressive, tossing out a bunch of denounces. The full Stormball comes out to Asbur, just taking a bit of damage there, dropping to 70%. And Hotted just sitting back, just trying to avoid the CC. The deep is coming up very soon, so he's probably expecting the deep poly soon. The Ironbark comes out onto Tony Jr. I think he tried to pre-Ironbark the deep, but he wasn't able to. Asbur taking a bit of damage, tossing out the clone. It does get it reflected onto him. Felorea just chilling back here on the platform, tossing out some hails. Mageiden taking a bit of damage also. Tony Jr. just trying to get aggressive onto this Mage, and the leap comes out from Lossa onto Mageiden, who just blinked. The Blade Storm is out, so he's not going to be able to get CC'd. He had a full poly onto Hottedtko. Tony does use the Sham Rage there to keep himself from dropping, and Asbur taking a bit of damage. Mageiden also getting cleaved here. Felorea tossing out the hills. The Word of Glory coming out. He's topping his team off. He still has his trinket. They still are able to play very aggressive. The full bash comes out onto Lossa. He's taking no damage though. Hottedtko sitting that full clone. Tony into the full poly. It doesn't get dispelled yet. It does get dispelled, and the full clone, it does come out onto Lossa. That's trying to swap the damage over to Tony Jr. Hottedtko is doing a really good job keeping his team up here. The full deep comes out. They aren't able to share that ring, so he is going to go into a full ring. The Shaman Rage drops off of Tony. He's at 43%. Hottedtko does have a trinket, but he wants to sit this Ring of Frost. Tony at 40%, trying to play a little defensive here. Asbur just playing really aggressive, getting a lot of cast out here. Felorea popping the wings to keep his team offensive, but he is dipping to 42%. He does use the execution sending on himself. The recklessness does come out from Lossa. He gets polyed on that. He does get dispelled, but it looks like both teams are going to be all right.
Yeah, Felorea still has his bubble and trinket. The same situation as last game. The Turbo Cleave just getting CC'd to death, not able to force any big cooldown just yet. Finally, dampening kicking in. The Hodge Solar Beam combination. Tony can't use the Shamanistic Rage while he's silenced. Hod is going to trinket, get the Iron Bark thrown up here. Rallying Cry is still available as well. Tony desperately trying to get some heals for himself. Does get some big healing surges. Going to be able to top himself off through that scary moment in time. He's going to have Shamanistic Rage for the next setup here. Mageiden blinking across the map as Felorea does go for a drink. Heroic Leap comes through, and Lossa is going to be able to stop that drink. A full bash now landed on Felorea. Unfortunately, Tony's cloned up, not able to connect, and Felorea is going to be able to hold on to his shield wall as a result. Now start kiting with the Freedom Sprint. Mageiden still at 50%. Felorea having a bit of a rough time keeping his team topped. Hottedtko camping the bear form, trying to avoid the polymorphs as we're going for Cyclone. Lands on the Lossa, deep onto Hottedtko. Hodge onto Tony. Shamanistic Rage going to be used immediately to answer all of this cross CC as it is a 3v1. Denouncers are flying in. Stormbolt onto Asbur to try and stop the incoming CC. Mageiden getting pressured here. Hottedtko leaves the CC, loading up the Hots onto Tony. Felorea trying to top off Mageiden for this entire time. Still at 49%. He has both blocks remaining. He's got to be careful. Saved by the Light's going to proc. Blazing Speed across the map. Lossa heroic leads to the center, connecting back to Felorea. He's going to use that freedom to get away. Instantly swaps back over to Mageiden. Tony Jr. just doing his best to connect onto whatever he can. Asbur throwing out the clones onto everybody, just being relentless at this point. Hottedtko loading down the Trents. He's getting ready for that deep freeze. Already camping bear form as well as Cat. Throwing out the Iron Bark preemptively here. Mageiden realizes that he's just going to be patient. Let it fade. Go for the deep freeze polymorph when it's safe to do so. As we're going for a Cyclone here, not able to land it. He does get reflected on it. Good reflect out from Lossa. Deep on Hottedtko, Hodge and a Tony. 3v1 situation. He's going to trinket. Lock the Ring of Frost. Polymorph being thrown out. He does pre-bear form to avoid it. Mageiden feeling some pressure. Stormbolt onto Felorea. 30% HP. Spamming the spell seals out. Avenging Wrath comes through for Felorea to top off Mageiden here in that dire situation.
Yeah, Felorea taking a sip of that Red Bull, popping those wings, keeping his team very offensive there, and Asbur doing a really good job off-healing and tossing out some pills with those Cyclones. Felorea does still have his wings up, so he is going to be able to top his team off here. But this Turbo is trying to put the pressure out. They're trying to keep the pressure flowing onto Felorea, who is trying to kite away. He's at 90%. Mageiden also dipping at 30%. He doesn't want to use this ice blockade. He's just trying to play very defensive and very greedy. Also, he isn't able to get that ring. He does get his polymorph reflected onto him. The full clone comes out onto Lossa. Shaman raised by Tony Jr. here, and Felorea just dumping out some heals. Asbur tossing out those Cyclones, pilling this Turbo really well. Hottedtko does have his trinket up, so this Turbo does have a lot of space to play very aggressive. Mageiden at 55%, but he is just trying to pill with those polymorphs. The full Stormbolt onto Asbur here. Felorea not into any CC at the moment, but the full ring coming out from Mageiden onto Hottedtko into the full ring. He wants to hold on it. He doesn't. He trinkets that instantly, and he does get the Iron Bark onto Tony Jr. The DR poly comes out. Tony Jr. has the Iron Bark out right now. They're trying to swap the pressure onto Lossa. The full beam comes out. Mageiden taking a lot of damage here, 30%. Not trying to block, being very greedy with his cooldowns, pulling away back to his Paladin, and Felorea just able to top him off here. He still does have Trinket 2 bops and his bubble. Lossa does pop his dive by the sword there, taking a lot of damage. The DR Cyclone comes out on Hottedtko, and it looks like both teams are going to be stable, but the Stormbolt does come out on Felorea. He's at 60%. He doesn't want to bubble that, and he's not taking much pressure. He still has saved by the light. He does pop his wing. Lossa's at 35%. He's 20%. He's in the full bash. Oh my god, Lossa taking a big Lance is there and Hottedtko into the CC, but he is able to get out of that, get his NS onto Lossa, top him off the foot, the full clone onto Hottedtko. Does have a trinket here. Lossa in some trouble. Tony Jr. trying to get out them off hill. He does pop his descendants to get some off hills out. Felorea into the Stormball Haze at 50%. He does use his execution centers with that wings up. As we're just tossing out the clones, the full clone onto Lossa, the deep onto Hottedtko. If he does get into this ring, he's gonna be big trouble for this team. Lossa's at 50%. He also goes to the ring 30%, 20%, and I think it's gonna be see you later. Don't be a hater. Bye bye, Lossa. Living 30%. Hottedtko's able to keep him up. The Iron Bar comes out. Mageiden and Asbur trying to keep the pressure up. Felorea does playing really aggressive here, trying to keep his team aggressive, but they aren't able to get the kill there.
Asbur with the Barkskin up to reduce the incoming damage. Felorea has no Avenging Wrath available, spamming out the heals, dampening at 20% here. Mageiden blinks in for the Deep Freeze Polymorph. He's going to land that full. No defensive cooldowns remaining. Tony into the full Hodge at 40%. A Fear comes out in desperation. Tony leaves the stun, throws down the grounding. Mageiden going to block offensive here to try and get more Polymorphs out desperately. The Master Flight getting thrown out. Tony at 20%, going to get locked out on that healing surge. Star Surges are connecting at 20%. Hottedtko into the half bash now, desperately trying to keep Tony alive here as they connect on the Asbur. He doesn't have Barkskin available. Saved by the Light's going to proc Tony and Asbur feeling the pressure. Felorea throwing out the heals. He gets locked on the Cyclone. Tony at 17%. Asbur into the full Stormbolt. Has his trinket. Sitting through Deep Freeze on the Haunted. Tony at 30% LOSing for his life here in the winner's side of the tournament. Felorea getting charged up here. Still has his bubble and one bop remaining. However, a full poly going to get landed. Haunted trinkets that immediately goes for the NS. The Hodge is going to land. Shamanistic Rage gets dispelled. They overlap it with the Iron Bark, but they don't care. They're trying to go for the kill right now. Asbur realizing that Displacer Beast out, trying to escape near death. Felorea line is siding as well now with his team, dampening at 33%. Felorea getting Stormbolted on the other side of the wall, entangling roots into Polymorph, getting dispelled immediately out from Hottedtko here. Felorea still trying to keep his team top. It's hard to do at 34%, dampening. Mageiden now at 40%, trying to throw down a defensive Ring of Frost, which is going to land onto Tony and Hottedtko. Clone onto Lossa, 3v1 onto Tony. He doesn't have Shaman Rage available. He realizes this. He's Ghost Wolfing, line of sighting all of Asbur's damage, but that Celestial alignment is ominous, and it's going to be coming up here in 6 seconds. Felorea, on the other hand, got to be careful. Tony and the Hodge, Stormbolt onto Asbur, both players playing for their lives at this point. Asbur finally coming out of the stun. Tony healing himself back up. He's going to have Shaman Rage in about 15 seconds here. He does get cloned. Poly onto Lossa. Hottedtko camping the bear farms to avoid the Polymorphs as best as he can. Bash onto Asbur. Charge over to Felorea, trying to force the bubble here as we're at 38%, dampening. Lossa just going on to whoever he can. Barkskin is now available. Celestial alignment as well. Trinket available for Tony as well as Shamanistic Rage. He's going to have to be on his A game for this next swap.
Yes, and this game here is crazy. It's really crazy right now. Asbur taking some damage here. Tony has to pop the Shamanistic Rage. The full ring comes out onto Hottedtko. He does hold his trinket. Will he get DR? Probably no, he doesn't. But he does get beamed for a second. The Shamanistic Rage will be able to keep Tony Jr. up here. Felorea popping his wing, drinking the Red Bulls, trying to keep his team offensive. But Mageiden and Asbur taking a lot of damage. Felorea also at 58%. He has to be careful with dampening at 42% plus the 25% from the Warrior. Tony Jr. into the Cyclone, full Cyclone here. Lossa just playing really aggressive with that Blade Storm onto Felorea. Felorea looks like he's going to be fine. Asbur trying to get the clones out, and Lossa does get into a full clone. The deep onto Hottedtko. Doesn't have trinket for 8 seconds. Tony into the bash. He does get an Iron Bark out before he gets full clone there. Tony at 43%, 30%, 20%, dipping low, but healing himself up with that sentence. And the full poly comes out onto Hottedtko. He instantly triggers Mageiden dropping here. He's at 43%. Asbur also in trouble, trying to toss out some clones. Pill for his mage. The full Stormbolt onto Felorea. He still has bubble. He still has trinket, but he's playing really, really greedy. Tony Jr. at 60%, 70%, and it's getting crazy now. Mageiden taking a lot of damage. Asbur taking a lot of damage, and it looks like they're gonna stabilize here.
Yeah, Tony has Shamanistic Rage available. He does get hodged up though at 50% HP. Deep Freeze on Hottedtko. Ring of Frost is gonna land. He has to be able to survive with this. Rallying Cry still available into the Solar Ring. He can't off-heal himself. 20% HP remaining. Desperately trying to reconnect onto whoever he can. Rallying Cry gonna be used there. NS comes out from Hottedtko. Doesn't do too much. We're at 50% dampening at this point. Both healers getting tapped on mana. Tony with nothing left defensively though at 12% HP. They don't need CC. 1%. How are you alive? Asbur at 33% gonna get bumped. Tony trying to purge it off. He's gonna go down. However, both teams getting pressured here as we reach the 50% dampening mark exactly.
Unfreaking believable. 50% dampening. Somehow, some way, Tony from the Bronx tried to make something happen here, but nice one, Xaryu. They're gonna take it, man. Felorea just about tapped on mana at this point. At 3% mana, Felorea is gonna end this game.
What a game.
What an amazing game coming out from both of these teams.
What a
Shout
game.
out to all 6 players. Shout out to Hottedtko for coming in as a last-minute sub-in and really performing quite well. Asbur, Mageiden, and Felorea is going to take that game. Man, unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. How are you feeling right now, Supa? Watching this game, watching Tony from the Bronx being your team, the team that you normally play on. What do you think?
Oh man, I think that's like a grim situation. You live that long and you still don't get bubble, bop, trinket. You got 1 block offensively. You're like, all right, I lived for 12 minutes, but we didn't really get a lot done. It's kind of a bad feeling, honestly. I would imagine they're not actually feeling too great. And it's something that I've come across a lot when I'm fighting it, and it kind of, you get down because you're like, oh, we stop this, live that, live this, but there's never a point where you can make a turnaround because there's just so much CC to just put you down and not be able to to force a cooldowns period. So, I mean, good on them to survive that long, but I would imagine they're actually probably feeling pretty down.
No, I absolutely would agree with you there, man. When it comes to losing a game that you work so hard for, it's rough. It really is. But shout out to everyone who competed. Shout out to Mageiden, Asbur, Felorea, Tony, a.k.a. Tony Style, and all Hottedtko as well, coming in, Lossa, once again. Shout out to all those guys. Phenomenal players, really top tier. And I hope to see them compete, and we will get to see them compete as both of them are still in the tournament. All right, guys, let's take a quick look up